Welcome to the deep dive. Um, I want you to take a second and really think about how you actually define aging.
Yeah, it's a profound question to start with.
Right. Because when you look in the mirror or when you wake up feeling a little stiffer than you did a decade ago,
Mm.
what do you think is happening mechanically?
Most people just assume it's wear and tear.
Exactly. Is
Yeah.
it just the inevitable, unstoppable ticking of the clock? A natural wear and tear that you just have to accept? Or is it possible that there's a distinct biological process going on beneath the surface? A process that we can actually influence or maybe even optimize?
It is a question that completely changes how you look at your own health baseline, especially once you start digging into the clinical data.
Hmm.
Because for a very long time, the standard medical answer was essentially just to accept that chronological decline as a given.
Well, today, our mission is to explore the absolute cutting edge of longevity medicine to see how that standard answer is being actively rewritten.
And we have some fascinating material to go through today.
We really do. We have a highly technical stack of sources for this deep dive. We're looking at clinical guides and protocol overviews from the Mirelle Institute for Anti-Aging Medicine.
They're based out of New Jersey, right?
Yes, out in New Jersey. And these materials were authored by the Institute's founder, Dr. Corina Ianculovici. She is a board-certified advanced practice clinician who specializes heavily in longevity medicine, metabolic health, and hormone optimization.
The protocols detailed in these documents represent a massive paradigm shift in clinical practice. We are moving away from the traditional medical approach of just, reacting to illness after the damage is already done.
Yeah, the old model of wait until it's broken, then try to patch it.
Exactly. And moving toward a proactive systems biology strategy of maintaining biological vitality.
Okay, let's unpack this because the core philosophy here completely changes the game.
Yeah.
How is the medical perspective on aging actually shifting in these clinical frameworks right now?
The foundational premise in Dr. Ianculovici's clinical guides is that aging is not merely the passage of time. We need to stop thinking of it as miles accumulating on a car engine. Instead, the sources categorize aging as a specific biological shift. It's a gradual, measurable decline in cellular signaling, metabolic efficiency, hormonal balance, and tissue regeneration.
So it's less about the calendar year
Yeah.
and more about the communication networks inside your body starting to, I don't know, drop the signal or misinterpret the data they're receiving?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, modern longevity medicine focuses on restoring these underlying biological networks. Traditional medicine often plays whack-a-mole with isolated symptoms.
Right, like treating the smoke instead of the fire.
Precisely. If a patient presents with high blood sugar, they are prescribed medication to forcibly lower it. If they present with fatigue, they're told to get more sleep.
Drink an extra cup of coffee.
Right. The longevity approach looks at the entire endocrine and metabolic system. It asks, why are these networks failing at a cellular level, and how can we restore their baseline function to what it was a decade ago?
I want you, the listener, to just imagine that for a second. What would it actually feel like to fix the root cause of that afternoon sluggishness, rather than just relying on that daily extra cup of coffee to push through?
It's a totally different standard of living.
It really is. Now, for our listeners who track their biomarkers and are familiar with these pathways, a major tool in this systems repair approach involves peptide therapy.
Yes, peptides are a huge focus in these protocols.
Specifically, using these signaling molecules to tell the body how to repair tissue and regulate metabolism. But as we age, those natural signals get weaker.
They drop off significantly.
And the documents heavily feature one peptide in particular to address this, sermorelin acetate. Let's look at the mechanics here, because direct human growth hormone, or HGH, is often viewed as a blunt instrument. It can actually shut down your body's natural feedback loops. So how does sermorelin differ?
Well, sermorelin acetate is a synthetic analog of growth hormone-releasing hormone, or GHRH. Rather than flooding the system with an exogenous hormone, which, as you mentioned, can cause the pituitary gland to downregulate or completely halt its own natural production, sermorelin acts upstream.
So instead of giving the body artificial growth hormone directly, like giving a person a fish,
It stimulates the pituitary gland to naturally release your body's endogenous growth hormone. So it's teaching the body to fish again.
teaching the body to fish again. I love that analogy. It's utilizing the body's existing pathways.
Exactly. What is really fascinating here is that sermorelin activates the body's natural pulsatile secretion of growth hormone.
Pulsatile meaning it's not just a steady, flat stream.
Right. It isn't a constant, unnatural flood of hormones that stays elevated around the clock. It mimics the natural nocturnal rhythms of a younger, healthier endocrine system, and that drastically reduces the side effects associated with direct HGH therapy.
And the documents back this up with clinical data. They cite a placebo-controlled clinical study by Velduis and colleagues, which was published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism.
That is a highly regarded journal for this specific pathway.
It is. They looked specifically at older adults and found that nightly administration of a GHRH analog resulted in significant measurable changes.
Wow.
We're talking about increased lean body mass, increased skin thickness, improved insulin sensitivity, and a boost in both libido and general well-being across both sexes.
The Velduis study is critical because it successfully demonstrated the activation of the growth hormone axis in an aging population without those detrimental side effects of exogenous hormone replacement.
Right.
The Endotext publication on growth hormone and aging, which is also referenced in the sources, outlines clearly why this matters. When endogenous growth hormone signaling declines, it directly drives an increase in body fat.
Which nobody wants.
No. And a rapid reduction in lean muscle mass alongside a measurable decrease in physical performance.
And just for you listening, think about why declining growth hormone is such a massive problem.
Yeah.
It's not just about aesthetics. It literally dictates whether your body decides to store fat or build functional muscle.
It dictates your frailty as you age.
Exactly. Sermorelin targets that specific hormonal decline safely through natural feedback loops. But optimizing the hormonal signal is really only one half of the equation here.
Right, you need the energy to actually execute the signal.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the other half of the Mirelle Institute's core therapy stack focuses on a completely different network cellular energy.
This is the metabolic engine.
Yeah. You can optimize all the hormonal signals you want, but if the cells themselves lack the internal energy to respond to those signals, the engine is still going to stall out. So let's talk about resolving this energy crisis.
The star player in resolving this energy crisis is NAD plus Miro, or nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide.
NAD plus, Miro. We hear about this a lot.
It's everywhere in longevity discussions right now. It is a critical coenzyme found in every single living cell, and the clinical guides position it as foundational to biological life.
So what is it actually doing down there at the microscopic level?
NAD plus is responsible for mitochondrial energy production. It is essentially the molecule that helps the mitochondria, the powerhouses of your cells, convert the nutrients you eat into usable cellular energy.
Okay.
It's also an absolute requirement for DNA repair, managing the oxidative stress response, and activating sirtuin signaling pathways.
Wait, pause on the sirtuin signaling for a second. We hear about sirtuins all the time in these longevity circles, usually in the context of fasting or caloric restriction. How exactly is NAD plus flipping that specific genetic switch?
Well, sirtuins are a family of proteins that regulate cellular health, control inflammation, and dictate how cells defend themselves against stress. But sirtuins are entirely NAD dependent. They literally cannot function without it.
Oh, wow.
If we view sirtuins as the cellular repair crew, NAD plus is the budget that pays them. If the budget dries up, the repair crew goes home, regardless of how much DNA damage is accumulating in the cell.
That makes perfect sense. But if NAD plus is found in every living cell and is so foundational to our biology, what is actually causing it to deplete so drastically by the time we hit our 40s and 50s?
The sources cite research by Rajman and colleagues published in the journal Cell Metabolism in 2018, which addresses exactly that.
And what did they find?
The research shows that NAD plus levels decline significantly as we age due to a combination of increased cellular damage, which consumes NAD plus heavily during the repair process, and a decrease in the body's ability to actually synthesize it.
So demand goes up and supply goes down.
Exactly. When NAD plus drops, it severely impairs mitochondrial function. Your cells literally lose their resilience and their capacity to produce energy efficiently.
This perfectly synthesizes why the Mirelle Institute pairs these two specific therapies together. Sermorelin and NAD plus work through completely complementary mechanisms.
They are two sides of the same coin.
Right. Sermorelin targets the declining endocrine signaling. It acts as the systemic project manager, sending out the upstream hormonal orders to repair and rebuild tissue. While NAD plus targets the declining cellular energy production. It operates on the micro level, providing the cellular energy and the biochemical substrates required to actually execute those orders. Together, they are tackling two of the most central aspects of aging biology simultaneously.
It is a highly comprehensive strategy, but to understand the true clinical utility of these targeted biological therapies, we have to look at the physical outcomes they are designed to produce.
So what does this all mean? When you, the listener, look in the mirror or review your annual blood work, how does this complex cellular and hormonal biology translate into your daily reality?
It translates directly to body composition.
Yes. The clinical focus in these protocols is intensely zeroed in on body composition, rather than just looking at body mass index or the raw number on a scale. It goes way beyond the scale.
The medical community is increasingly recognizing the profound metabolic dangers of visceral fat. We are not talking about subcutaneous fat, the soft fat that sits just under your skin.
The pinchable fat.
Right, the pinchable fat. Visceral fat is the hard, deep fat stored inside the abdominal cavity, wrapping around your internal organs like the liver and intestines.
And why is that specific type of fat so dangerous?
The Mirelle Institute documents strongly link visceral fat to severe health risks because it isn't just inert storage, it is highly active endocrine tissue that pumps out inflammatory cytokines, driving insulin resistance, cardiovascular disease, and chronic systemic inflammation.
So it's basically metabolically toxic.
Extremely toxic.
But the cruel irony of aging is that while we are accumulating that toxic visceral fat, we are simultaneously losing our primary defense against it.
You're referring to sarcopenia.
Yes. Let's talk about sarcopenia.
Sarcopenia is the progressive loss of skeletal muscle mass and strength as we age. The clinical guides reference a consensus definition of sarcopenia by Cruz-Gentoft and colleagues in the journal Age and Aging.
And what is the main takeaway from that consensus?
The core takeaway is that muscle must no longer be viewed merely as an aesthetic goal or a tool for locomotion. Muscle is an essential metabolic organ.
So we should be looking at muscle less as an aesthetic pursuit and more as a metabolic engine.
Absolutely, because it acts as a literal glucose sink. Skeletal muscle is responsible for clearing the majority of glucose from your bloodstream after a meal,
Wow.
preserving lean muscle mass while simultaneously improving metabolic efficiency. Specifically by stripping away that inflammatory visceral fat is arguably the primary objective of modern anti-aging medicine. Maintaining that muscle tissue is the only reliable guarantee for long-term metabolic stability and physical independence.
It's a bit humbling, though, to realize that amidst all these advanced peptide stacks and NAD plus infusions, there is one intervention mentioned in the sources that can entirely derail this progress if ignored.
The surprise intervention.
And it's something you can do tonight for free. The clinical reality of sleep.
The source material refers to a pivotal study by Van Cotter and Platt in Sleep Medicine Reviews that explains the deep mechanistic link between sleep architecture and your endocrine system.
Sleep architecture usually refers to the specific staging and cycling of brain waves throughout the night. How does that directly interface with the hormonal longevity protocols we are discussing?
It turns out the natural secretion of endogenous growth hormone, that exact same vital hormone we are trying to stimulate upstream with sermorelin, is inextricably linked to slow-wave sleep.
Slow-wave sleep being the deep sleep.
Yes, slow-wave sleep is the deepest, most restorative phase of your sleep cycle, characterized by delta brain waves. The overwhelming majority of your daily growth hormone is released in a massive pulse during this specific sleep stage.
Which means if you're tossing and turning, relying on alcohol to pass out, or revenge bedtime procrastinating on your phone until 2 a.m., you're literally short-circuiting your body's own anti-aging hormonal repair cycle.
You are fighting against your own biology.
Exactly. All the peptides in the world can't outcompete severe sleep deprivation. It's a massive domino effect.
The documents cite research from Nature Reviews Endocrinology, showing that disruptions in sleep architecture directly impair hormonal balance. Poor sleep doesn't just make you subjectively tired. It severely blunts insulin sensitivity the very next day.
The very next day.
Yes, and chronically, it is clinically associated with a drastically increased risk of obesity, cardiovascular disease, and impaired cognitive performance.
It really makes you pause and think. How much of your biological aging right now, the brain fog or the stubborn weight, is happening simply because you aren't optimizing your rest?
It's a critical baseline to establish.
But when we talk about biological aging, we also have to address the major hormonal transitions that happen in midlife. Aging isn't always a slow, linear, steady decline. Often, it is a steep, jarring drop-off.
The source material outlines how these precise therapies are specifically tailored to help patients navigating the major life transitions of andropause and menopause.
And this is where the approach becomes highly individualized.
Very much so. The symptoms of these transitions are frequently written off by standard medical practitioners as just getting older, leaving patients to suffer through them. But they are highly specific clinical conditions that require targeted intervention.
Let's start with andropause in man. If you are a guy listening to this or you have an aging loved one, this goes far beyond just feeling a little tired.
Yeah.
We're talking about the gradual but significant decline in free and total testosterone levels that occurs with aging.
The symptoms listed in the clinical guides are pervasive. Deep systemic fatigue, noticeably reduced libido, a sharp increase in that dangerous visceral abdominal fat we discussed, a rapid loss of lean muscle mass, and a measurable decrease in cognitive drive and motivation.
For men presenting with clinically confirmed testosterone deficiency, the sources note that testosterone replacement therapy, or TRT, is highly appropriate under rigorous physician supervision.
Yes, they cite the Endocrine Society clinical practice guidelines to support this, but the longevity approach doesn't stop at simply prescribing exogenous testosterone.
Because it's about systems biology.
Exactly. This is where peptides like sermorelin serve as a crucial adjunctive tool. By optimizing the testosterone levels while simultaneously supporting the growth hormone pathways with peptides, the clinician can achieve a much more comprehensive metabolic and hormonal optimization than TRT alone could ever provide.
Now, the clinical friction seems even more pronounced for women navigating menopause. Traditional medicine has notoriously poor track record here, often just offering antidepressants or telling women they simply have to endure it.
It's historically been very poorly managed.
Menopause represents a severe, often rapid decline in estrogen and progesterone levels. The symptoms are famously disruptive: severe sleep disturbances, sudden visceral weight gain, profound fatigue, and rapid changes in body composition and bone density. And of course, the vasomotor symptoms.
Vasomotor symptoms are commonly referred to as hot flashes, but they represent a systemic dysregulation of the hypothalamus's temperature control center due to dropping estrogen levels. It is a vascular and neurological event, not just a subjective feeling of warmth.
And what do the protocols suggest for this?
For this, the Mirelle Institute references the 2022 position statement from the Menopause Society. The consensus is clear hormone therapy remains the absolute most effective clinical treatment for vasomotor symptoms and menopause-related sleep disruption.
Specifically, the protocols utilize bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, or BHRT, meaning the molecular structure of the hormones exactly matches what the body naturally produces.
Right.
But again, it isn't used in a vacuum. Longevity clinics integrate that hormone optimization with metabolic and cellular support therapies, like those NAD+ infusions, to help women maintain their cellular resilience, metabolic health, and body composition throughout the entire transition, rather than just masking the symptoms.
It's about comprehensive support during a massive biological shift.
Speaking of radically altering body composition, we have to talk about the Luxe Metabolic Reset mentioned in the Mirelle protocols. This brings us to the massive elephant in the room regarding longevity and weight loss right now.
You're talking about the GLP-1 medications.
GLP-1 medications like tirzepatide. The weight loss craze is everywhere.
GLP-1 receptor agonists have completely upended the landscape of metabolic medicine. They work by mimicking incretin hormones, which regulate blood sugar levels, slow gastric emptying, and send powerful satiety signals to the brain.
They turn off the food noise.
Exactly, and the clinical efficacy is undeniable. The sources cite the SURPASS trial from the New England Journal of Medicine, which demonstrated unprecedented reductions in body weight and, crucially, massive reductions in that inflammatory visceral adipose tissue we highlighted earlier.
So if these drugs are so wildly effective at clearing out that toxic visceral fat, why do longevity clinics like the Mirelle Institute approach them with such caution? Why isn't a GLP-1 prescription alone considered enough?
This raises an important question about the collateral damage of rapid weight loss. The catch-22 of GLP-1 medications is that when the body loses a substantial amount of mass quickly due to profound caloric deficit, it doesn't just burn fat.
The body panics a bit.
It does. The body will readily catabolize or break down precious lean muscle tissue for energy if it isn't given a strong biological signal to preserve it. Patients can end up losing significant amounts of skeletal muscle alongside the fat.
And as we established with the Creuss-Gentoft sarcopenia data, lean muscle is your essential metabolic organ. If you strip away your muscle mass while losing weight, you're actively sabotaging your long-term health span and your body's ability to regulate glucose the moment you stop taking the medication.
This is exactly why the Mirelle Institute insists on a highly integrated solution. During any medical weight loss program utilizing a GLP-1, preserving muscle becomes the critical clinical priority. You cannot simply prescribe the medication and send the patient home.
It requires a synergistic protocol.
Yes. If a patient is using GLP-1s to aggressively target visceral fat, the protocol dictates they must combine it with muscle-preserving therapies.
Meaning integrating the Sermorelin peptide therapy to keep the upstream growth hormone signaling active.
Exactly. And committing to heavy resistance training to mechanically stimulate the muscle, ensuring adequate dietary protein, and balancing the underlying sex hormones. The entire system has to be coordinated to actively protect the muscle tissue while the fat is oxidized.
It really is the defining characteristic of precision longevity medicine. A patient undergoes a comprehensive biological evaluation, and the treatment plan layers these specific therapies: Sermorelin, NAD+, BHRT, GLP-1s, and sleep optimization, so that they're all interacting and supporting one another seamlessly.
It's treating the body as the complex ecosystem it is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the main takeaway for you, the listener, is that aging isn't a single biological switch that gets flipped. It is a highly complex, interconnected network involving your cellular energy production, your upstream hormonal signaling, your skeletal muscle mass, and even the precise architecture of your nightly sleep.
Everything is connected.
While it is true that no single magic pill or isolated therapy can reverse the aging process, an integrated, heavily science-driven approach can absolutely help you maintain your biological vitality and resilience well into your later decades.
Before we conclude, there is one final detail from the Mirelle Institute protocols that speaks volumes about the future of this field.
Oh, right. This part is fascinating.
Before patients even begin these integrated biological treatments, the Institute utilizes advanced artificial intelligence tools, specifically systems called Ageless AI Aesthetic for facial and structural mapping, and Ageless AI Wellness for full body composition.
Wait, they're using AI modeling for your own biological optimization.
Yes. These forward-looking technologies allow patients to vividly visualize their personalized aesthetic and body composition possibilities before a single peptide is administered or a hormone optimized.
That is wild.
I can literally see the potential clinical results of the protocols mapped directly onto their own physiology based on predictive algorithms.
I want to leave you with that provocative thought to mull over today. Imagine being able to look at a screen and actually see a biologically younger, metabolically optimized version of your future self.
It changes the whole mindset.
How might actually seeing that reality, seeing exactly what your own body is truly capable of with the right cellular and hormonal support, change your daily motivation? How might it completely change your relationship with the very concept of aging?
It certainly reframes the entire conversation from what function have I lost to what biology can I actively rebuild.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the shifting science of longevity medicine. Keep questioning the defaults, keep analyzing your own biology, and as always, keep diving deep.